Hello everyone, welcome to The Attic. My name's Mark Jago, I'm a philosophy professor in the UK. Today we're continuing with the Philosophy Glossary, so we're trying to make sense of some of those difficult bits of terminology that crop up right the way through philosophy. Today we're going to be focusing on nominalism. So if we're talking about nominalism or nominalists, we're pretty much in the area of metaphysics. We're thinking about whether some kind of entity or some metaphysical category of things exists. Nominalism is usually defined as the idea that those things exist in name only. In name only. That's where the nominalism comes from. But that is pretty much to say that those things don't exist at all, but maybe we get to use the name as if they do exist. Two classic examples of nominalism. Nominalism about numbers. That's the view that there are really no such thing as numbers. Numbers don't exist. And nominalism about properties. So that's the view that really there are no such things in the world corresponding to our idea of, say, bigness or redness or squareness or any other properties. Okay, so we've got the words like redness and we get to use those meaningfully, but they don't correspond to any existing entity in the world. Okay, that's nominalism about properties. So nominalists usually contrast with realists. So realists about numbers say, yep, numbers really do exist. They are entities that exist. Realists about properties, they say, yeah, as well as there being you and me and chairs and tables, there are also entities corresponding to the properties that these things have. So the property of being big or round or square or red, those are also entities in the world. That's what realists say. That's what nominalists deny. Why would you be a nominalist? Well, basically, if you're saying that these things exist, you've got a bunch of tricky questions. So take the case of numbers, for instance. If you think that numbers really do exist, then you've got some questions to answer like, well, what are they? What is the kind of intrinsic nature of a number? What kind of existence does it have? Is it an abstract entity? Is it just in our minds? If it's an abstract entity, how could we know about it? If it's just in our minds, how come the numbers don't go away when, we all go to sleep or before there was any human beings or whatever? So being a nominalist gets you out of answering tricky metaphysical questions about what are the numbers, because you're saying there aren't any numbers. There's no such thing in the world as numbers. But by the same token, nominalists have some tricky questions to answer. Because think about if you're solving a maths problem, right? A typical way to phrase a math challenge would be to say something like, is there a number such that ... And if you're a nominalist, the answer's always no, right? Because they say there's no such thing as numbers. But that's not really the way you go about answering a maths problem. Take a really, really simple one. Is there a number, an integer between 1 and 3? Well, yeah, of course there is. 2. 2's between 1 and 3. So there is a number between 1 and 3. So there is a number. So numbers exist. Okay, so somehow a nominalist has to agree with the first bit of that. They have to agree that there is a number between 1 and 3. It's 2. But somehow still reject the idea that numbers really exist. So they have to account for the talk, that's the kind of in-name only bit, without admitting that numbers really exist. Exactly how you go about doing that is tricky, and we're not going to get into it today. But typically, the strategy of a nominalist is to somehow translate the talk into something that they like a bit more. So maybe when we're talking about numbers and we say things like there is a number between 1 and 3, we're just playing around with axioms. Or maybe we're actually talking not about numbers, but about real things in the world, like, apples and oranges and things. So when I say there is some quantity of apples between 1 apple and 3 apples, it's 2 apples, I'm pretty much just talking about apples. Nominalists are fine with apples, so, that would be okay. So they translate the language they don't like, the language of numbers, into stuff that they do like. Different nominalists might do that in different ways. It tends to be a tricky thing to do, but it's also tricky to be a realist about numbers. All the same stuff pretty much goes with nominalism and realism about properties. Okay, so that is what nominalism means, that's what nominalism is, and there are some reasons why you might or might not be a nominalist. So I hope you found that useful. If you did, do me a favour and give this video a thumbs up. I'm going to be continuing with more of the Philosophy Glossary, trying to explain these tricky philosophical terms. If you think that's going to be useful to you, you can subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to get notifications. Thank you so much for watching this far. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you back here soon.